There's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from working too hard. It comes from never being able to stop. Not because the work never ends, but because no matter how much you do, no matter how much you achieve, how much you improve, how much you give, something inside you keeps moving the line. You finished the thing. You got the grade. You got the promotion. You got the compliment. And for maybe 3 seconds, it felt like something. And then it was gone. And the feeling came back, the one that says, that wasn't enough. You're still not enough. You have to keep going. If you know exactly what this feels like, this video is going to explain something important to you. Not just what this pattern is, but where it actually comes from, why success never fixes it, and what's actually happening beneath the surface when a person can never seem to feel like enough. The first thing to understand is what this isn't. This isn't about being lazy or unmotivated. People who never feel like enough are often the most driven people in the room. They work harder than anyone. They prepare more than anyone. They hold themselves to standards that most people would find exhausting just to read about. From the outside, they often look successful, capable, put together, like they have everything under control. But inside, there is a voice. Quiet sometimes, loud other times. And it says some version of the same thing, over and over. Not yet. Not quite. Not enough. This isn't just low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is when you think you're not good at things. This is something different. This is when being good at things doesn't change how you feel about yourself. When success arrives and the feeling doesn't shift. When the evidence is right there and it still doesn't land. That gap between what you achieve and what you feel is the thing worth understanding. To understand where this comes from, you have to go back further than you might expect. Psychologist Carl Rogers spent decades studying what he called the conditions of worth. The idea is this: early in life, every child is trying to answer one question above all others. Am I lovable? Am I acceptable? Am I enough? And the answer to that question doesn't come from books or lessons. It comes from what the people around you responded to. What got you attention? What got you warmth? What made the adults in your life light up or go quiet? For some children, the message was consistent. You are loved because you exist. Your presence, your personality, your mess, and your noise, all of it is welcome here. Rogers called this unconditional positive regard. And when children receive it, something settles in the nervous system. A foundational sense that they are, at their core, acceptable. But for many children, and this is where it starts, the love that was available was conditional. Not because their parents were cruel, often because their parents were doing the best they could with the patterns they inherited. But the message that came through, however unintentionally, was something like this. When you achieve, you matter. When you succeed, we're proud. When you behave, there's peace. When you fall short, something shifts. The child doesn't think about this consciously. Children don't analyze their caregivers. They adapt to them. And the adaptation is simple. I need to be more. I need to do more. I need to become something that earns this love rather than simply receives it. That adaptation was smart. At the time, it probably worked. But it came with a cost that only becomes visible years later. The belief that you are only as valuable as what you can produce. This shows up in a very specific way in adults. Psychologist Kristen Neff, one of the leading researchers on self-compassion, has spent years studying how people relate to themselves under pressure. And she found something striking. Most people who struggle with never feeling like enough are not actually hard on themselves because they're failing. They're hard on themselves as a strategy. They believe, somewhere beneath conscious awareness, that the criticism keeps them safe. If I criticize myself first, no one else can surprise me with it. If I demand more of myself than anyone else would, I can stay ahead of the failure. If I never feel satisfied, I'll never stop pushing. And as long as I'm pushing, I'm still trying. And as long as I'm trying, I can't completely fail. The inner critic isn't irrational. It's a protection mechanism that was once very useful. The problem is that it doesn't know when the danger has passed. It just keeps going. There's a name for one version of this pattern that you've probably heard before: imposter syndrome. The term was coined in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, who were studying high-achieving women who privately believed they didn't deserve their success. They were convinced they had fooled everyone, that at any moment someone would discover that they didn't actually belong where they were. The research has since expanded enormously, and what's become clear is that imposter experience, that persistent feeling of being secretly unqualified, is not rare. It's not limited to women. It affects people across every field, every achievement level, every demographic. What's especially interesting is what the research consistently shows. External success doesn't cure it. The person gets the degree and waits to be exposed as a fraud, gets the job and waits for someone to figure out the mistake, receives the award and assumes it was a slow year. Every achievement becomes reframed as luck, timing, or other people's error in judgment, never as evidence of genuine worth. Here's what's happening underneath all of that. There are two very different sources of self-worth. Psychologists call them internal and external. External worth is earned. It depends on performance, on achievement, on validation from other people. It needs to be rebuilt every single day because it degrades the moment the external input stops. Internal worth doesn't need to be earned. It just exists. It's the kind of value that comes from simply being a person, not from what that person produces. People who grew up with conditional love developed almost entirely external sources of worth, which means they have to keep achieving, keep performing, keep improving. Because the moment they stop, there's nothing underneath to hold them up. This is why success never fixes it, because the architecture is wrong. You can't build a stable sense of self on something that has to be constantly re-earned. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You can keep pouring in achievements, compliments, results, and they feel like something, but they don't stay.
Let's talk about what this actually looks like in daily life. Because this pattern doesn't just live in the mind. It shapes behavior in very specific ways. The first thing it creates is perfectionism, not the healthy kind, where high standards drive excellent work, the painful kind, where nothing is ever quite right, where the finished project looks good to everyone except you, where you can list 20 things wrong with something before you can say one thing that worked, where you avoid starting things because if you don't start, you can't fail. Perfectionism at its core is not about quality. It's about safety. If I make it perfect, no one can criticize it. If no one can criticize it, I'm protected. If I'm protected, I can breathe. But perfect is never actually reached, so the breathing never quite happens. The second thing it creates is chronic comparison. Not the passing glance at what someone else has, but the constant draining habit of measuring your insides against everyone else's outsides. And the comparison always runs in one direction. You take the most polished, accomplished version of other people and compare it to your most private, doubtful, uncertain self. Of course it comes out the same way every time. Of course you lose. That's not a fair comparison, but it feels absolutely real. Social psychologist Leon Festinger, who developed social comparison theory in the 1950s, found that humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate themselves by comparing themselves to others. But he also found something else. The comparisons people make and what they conclude from them are heavily influenced by what they already believe about themselves. People who already believe they're not enough look for evidence that confirms that belief, and they find it everywhere because they're looking for it. The third thing this pattern creates is something that's perhaps the most painful of all: an inability to receive. Someone gives them a genuine compliment, and instead of taking it in, there's a slight flinch, an urge to deflect, minimize, explain it away. It wasn't really that impressive. You're being too kind. I just got lucky. And this seems strange from the outside. You would think someone who never feels like enough would desperately want every piece of validation they could get. But here's what the research shows. Compliments feel uncomfortable when they conflict with a deeply held self-concept. If, at a core level, you believe you're not quite enough, then being told you're impressive doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a threat, because now you have to maintain that impression. Now, there's a gap between who they think you are and who you know yourself to be. And that gap is terrifying. So the deflection isn't false modesty. It's self-protection from the gap, from the expectation, from the inevitable moment that they believe is coming, when someone finally sees through them. Now, here's what the research says about what actually helps. Not what people tell you should help. Just believe in yourself. Remember how much you've accomplished. What actually moves the needle. The first thing is understanding that this is not a flaw in your character. It is a completely logical outcome of learning to survive in an environment where love was conditional. Your nervous system did exactly what it was supposed to do. It mapped the rules of your world and it adapted to them. The map was accurate. The territory just changed. And the map hasn't caught up yet. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion, which she has studied across thousands of people in dozens of countries, shows consistently that the antidote to this pattern is not more achievement. It's not more evidence of worth. It's not more validation from other people. It's a different relationship with yourself during the moments when you fall short. She describes 3 components. The first is self-kindness, responding to your own failure or inadequacy with the same warmth you would offer a close friend. Not with the voice that says you should have known better, but with the voice that says, this is hard, and you're still here. The second is common humanity, the recognition that suffering, inadequacy, and the feeling of not being enough are not signs that you're broken. They're signs that you're human. Every person sitting with you in any room has a version of this feeling. It's not a private failure. It's part of what it means to be alive and conscious and trying to be something. The third is mindfulness, not detachment, but the ability to notice the thought, I'm not enough, without immediately becoming it. To see it as a thought, a pattern, a very old habit, not a fact, not a verdict, just something that shows up sometimes and can be witnessed without believing it completely. There's one more thing worth saying, because it sits beneath all of this. The voice that says you're not enough, it wasn't born in you. You were not born believing you were insufficient. Watch any 2-year-old for 10 minutes. They're not worried about whether they're impressive. They're not measuring themselves against anyone. They're just being, completely unself-consciously, fully being. That version of you still exists. It didn't disappear. It got buried under years of adapting, of performing, of trying to become something that finally felt safe to be. The work isn't to build yourself into something more impressive. The work is something quieter than that. It's to slowly, carefully unlearn the equation that was taught to you without anyone meaning to teach it. The equation that says, your worth depends on your performance. Your value is earned. You have to keep going to justify your place here. Because that equation is not true. It never was. It was just the rule of a room you were in a long time ago. And you have been living by it ever since.